Hello, hello, this is Pablo with Meditation Amsterdam. It is Friday afternoon today after a very cool week. And today I thought I would elaborate and keep building on some quotes from this book, which is Mindsight by Daniel Siegel. And as I mentioned in my previous video, this is one of the coolest books I've read because it was a kind of scientific underpinning and confirmation of many of the practices and benefits that you see in things like meditation and yoga, for example, or Tai Chi Chuan, as a matter of fact. And this is a book that explains why that is the case. So very valuable. And today I'm going to elaborate on one topic of the book, which is really the central theme, and it's about integration, or that's how the author describes this whole thing. So integration, and to do that, I'm gonna read a book quote for you, and it goes like this. So, these characteristics of happy people, such as gratitude, compassion, open-mindedness, and curiosity. Is there some unnamed quality that underlies all these individual strengths? So, in other words, the author is trying to get behind a kind of, he's trying to find this sort of silver bullet, right? So, from many Eastern practices, but also psychology and his own psychology practice, with his clients, he tries to sort of distill what is the essence of what makes a person happy, but not happy in the sense of is your life story and is your life situation going the way you want, but this intrinsic sense of constant joy, right? So this sort of internal fountain of joy, and he's trying to find out what that is made up of. And he tells us what it is, which is this whole idea of integration that I mentioned. So he says, over the last 20 years, I've come to believe that integration is the key mechanism beneath both the absence of illness and the presence of well-being. Integration, the linkage of differentiated elements of a system, illuminates a direct pathway towards health. It's the way we avoid a life of dull, boring rigidity on the one hand, or explosive chaos on the other. So there's a lot to unpack here, and the first thing that catches my eye in this quote is this idea that you're not, he says avoiding illness and promoting health, right? Positively promoting health. And this is also interesting, not just because he's talking about mental health, but he's also talking about bodily health. In other words, what Daniel Siegel has noticed in his practice is that as the different elements in our system become more integrated, and we'll describe what that means in essence, you become not only happier, mentally happier, and sort of you feel good in your body, but your body becomes healthier at the same time, right? So once again, we come across this false dichotomy of the mind and the body, or the brain and the body. But what Seagel has discovered, or rediscovered as a matter of fact, or explained rather, is that this integration between mind and body and the different aspects of them creates health across the board. It creates health and happiness in the entire system. All right, which is quite an interesting thing, right? You would expect, hey, somebody became happier, but they're still kind of constantly getting ill. But he discovered that it's the other way around. It's that you become happier and healthier when you create more integration. The other thing is he talks about this idea that if you lack integration, your system as a whole will be swinging between two extremes of the yin and the yang. On the one hand, you could display a lot of traits of rigidity in your life. In other words, you'll be stuck to certain patterns that need to be loosened up and perhaps reevaluated. But on the other hand, you're going to be acting in chaotic ways, right? So as opposed to this flowy stream of consciousness and health that is going through you, you're going to be flipping between being stuck and being chaotic, as opposed to this kind of flowy organization that is correct and fluid and that feels skillful. And so that's quite interesting as well. But he mentions another thing, and now I've lost the quote, clever as I am. But he mentions this idea of a system that has parts that have different functions becoming integrated. So think about a moment about what that means. And let's take the example of the right and left hemispheres of the brain as an example of this. So the left hemisphere of the brain is the more linear, logical part of the brain, and the right hemisphere is one that is more exploratory and open. And it's not so concerned with the different little parts, but it's concerned more with the whole. So right brain thinking is more holistic thinking, and left brain thinking is more logical and directed. So once again, you have the yin and yang at play. Now, what happens when these are disconnected or poorly integrated is you're going to be flipping between those two and unable to create a coherent narrative between them, because they are fundamentally different ways to see the world and to experience life. So when you go through exercises to start to really integrate left and right, they start to work in harmony, and they start to work in a synchronized way. So you start creating this much richer view of the world that includes both of them, and you are not dominated by one or the other. So think about what it's like to be dominated by the left brain, right? So you are totally cerebral and logical, but somehow you're missing the bigger picture. And maybe if you're dominated by the right brain, you understand metaphor and you feel things in a super holistic kind of way, but you can't balance your checkbook for if your life depended on it. And both are extremes that you want to avoid. And we all suffer from these and from left or right brain dominance in one way or another, or flipping between the two in a way that we can't quite reconcile. In which case, if we start to work on bringing these together, then that's going to create a much richer, healthier, and happier picture of life for us that we can then start to live, right? So that would be one example of what it's like to experience integration. Now, I think I'm going to make this discussion about integration a talk that is split into several clips, because we can think about integration in different ways. So left and right was the example of this clip as we start to talk about integration. But as we'll go on, you'll notice that there's far more to be explored in that topic. Integration is so important. Daniel Siegel pinpointed it as the silver bullet for health and happiness, but as I mentioned, he didn't quite discover it. He just pinpointed or pointed at it. But if you unpack, for example, the meaning of yoga, which is to join, aka to integrate, the entire method of yoga. And also, if you looked at Tai Chi Chuan, for example, the entire method of Tai Chi is about a stronger handshake and more integration. So as it turns out, this is it. There is nothing more important than to become more fully integrated within. And you can do that, of course, through different methods, such as meditation or meditative practices, mindfulness, and things of this kind. So that's the first clip on a little series that I'll try to do on integration. We talked about integrating left and right hemispheres of the brain today as an example of that. And as we go on, we'll elaborate more on it. and I hope you guys have an awesome weekend. Cheers.